Very good afternoon to you. If you're just tuning in, you're watching SA Today, and we're counting down, of course, to the State of the Nation address, which will be happening a little later on this evening. And we're starting to unpack what this State of the Nation address might mean to the millions of South Africans across the country, waiting patiently to hear what the President is going to be saying. Well, to tell us a little bit about his thoughts on this, I'm now joined by the Director of Research at ASRI, Angelo Fick. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
So one question that I have is the State of the Nation. Is this a misnomer as to actually what happens?
Well, yes, in SONA after SONA, what it actually is a report back on government activity or a projection of what government wants to do. There will be some tiny bits of detail about the assessment of where South Africa happens to be. But I think we need to start with understanding, and here I go via somebody called Benedict Anderson, who in 1983 talked about an imagined community. So the nation is an imagined community, and so what Cyril Ramaphosa is going to tell us is about what he imagines that imagined community is in a state of, what it is like, what it needs, and what his government says it will provide to that imagined community.
How does it help us as citizens? Is it useful, or is it something that we really need to think about?
I think it's both of those two things. So I think it is important and I think it is useful. But let's not forget, this is a speech given by the head of government and head of state to the people of South Africa and their representatives in Parliament. It is a ceremonial occasion in some senses, but that's all it really should be. A speech given by the head of government and head of state to the representatives and therefore to the people of South Africa. All of this other stuff is really, shall we say, icing on top of a potential cake. So the question is, what is the substance of the cake? And that's where I think citizens have to pay attention. I'm slightly heterodox and slightly, some people will say, churlish, and suggest that actually we don't need all of this pomp and circumstance. We're a country where we're constantly being told we need to save money, we're cash strapped, we're at risk. So the military costs something, the security issues cost something. All of these things cost material. Shutting down the city cuts down on business and trading opportunities, inconveniences, and that might seem odd to say, thousands of people who have to leave the city early, come into the city at a different time. There are all sorts of issues at work there. This could technically be no different from presidential question time. This should be televised, it should be on radio, there should be publicity for it. But I don't think that we're in a position any longer where we should take the vestigial forms of the past, repeat them in circumstances that actually call for something else. And this may be a challenge to the President, to the African National Congress, to government, to Parliament, to begin to think very differently about how these occasions happen. It is important for the state ceremonial to happen, the three tiers of government, the three arms of government to come together for this speech. But it does not have to happen at the cost or with the elaborate issues that are currently at work. And it may be time for South Africans to ask themselves very critical questions about what is absolutely required and what is nice to have, and whether we are any longer in a situation where the nice to have, which we pay for, should be had.
All right, so we need to look at some of these traditions. All right, so people are speculating on what he might say, and I'm just wondering, but what could be significantly different from his inauguration speech just 5 minutes ago?
So there, of course, the intervening moment was the African National Congress's Lekgotla meeting and consultations with the, shall we say, alliance partners. But I think this is an agenda-setting moment for Cyril Ramaphosa, where he can tell the country, and thereby the world, what his government intends to focus on. And many people have been saying that he should focus on jobs and on the economy, and that's certainly very, very important. But I think we need to be wary of reducing South Africa's many, many challenges to the economic. We have other challenges that are political, that are social. There are concerns around increasing disaffection with the electoral political system by youth. There is increasing disaffection around education and quality of education. There are concerns around the environment and sustainability that cannot be resolved by reducing everything to the economic. Jobs, the employment situation, economy, those are important. But we must not reduce politics to economics. Our elected officials, the political officials, cannot become nothing but, shall we say, administrators for economic interests. They have other work to do, and it is important for citizens to understand what that other work could be.
All right. Okay. We'll continue to chat a little bit more about these issues and what might be said and what we need to pay attention to.